Chuck finished excavating the land and went on to his next job. I didn't see or hear of him for about a year, not until I read a report in the paper that he had been arrested for the murder of his wife. The article, and a series of gruesome reports which followed it almost daily, detailed a shocking story of murder and dismemberment. I followed it with horrified fascination along with thousands of other readers. For me, it was like another trip back to the second grade. Chuck had killed his wife, he'd shot her, then cut up her body into parts, which he'd buried at various work sites. The paper said he and his wife lived in a mobile home and had few friends, and when anyone asked about her whereabouts, he had said that she'd gone back to Kentucky to live with her family. The crime had been discovered when a homeowner decided to put in an addition to his house in the place of a patio that Chuck had helped install. He asked Chuck to do the work, but he'd refused, saying he was too busy with other jobs. A second contractor had come in, broken up the cement patio, and while sinking a piling for a footer, discovered a sack of bones, several feet below ground level, big bones buried in a burlap bag. A coroner said it was the decomposed right leg of a female human. In the investigation that followed, people recalled seeing Chuck with burlap bags at several work sites. Further digging uncovered more, but not all, of Vera's mutilated body, and Chuck was arrested for the monstrous and bloody murder of his wife. Since the evidence was circumstantial, he was tried for manslaughter. He confessed his guilt but did not testify in court, and he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. The public howled over this feeble application of justice. His picture in the paper, showing a bearded giant of a man, plus the horrifying details of the crime, Grizzly, G-R-I-S-L-Y, Grizzly Adams they called him now, led to the inescapable conclusion that Chuck was a beast, not a man, a cold-blooded killer and a brutal butcher. I recall the look on his face when he thought he was going to hit that squirrel, and though I could not doubt his guilt in this hideous crime, I still could not quite picture him as a savage killer. A few witnesses, his attorney, the prison guards, and even the prosecutor, once the trial was over, described him as a quiet, reserved man, the man I remembered. I went one day to his trial, but stayed at the rear of the courtroom. Chuck kept his head bowed throughout the proceedings, and he was closely guarded. Though the trial was a formality given his confession, the courtroom was jammed with TV cameras and microphones. Everyone wanted to see the man who could have done such a terrible thing. A few months after the trial was over, I received a phone call from a man who identified himself as Chuck's attorney. He said that Chuck had seen me that day in the courtroom, and he'd asked if I might be willing to visit him in prison. The attorney said that I was the only person that Chuck had asked to see. I'd be interested to hear what he has to say to you, he said. He didn't have much to say to me. He's not a big talker, I said. I told the lawyer that I would go see Chuck. I don't know what good it will do, I said. He was incarcerated in a maximum security jail, an environment which thoroughly intimidated me. All stone and steel, all gray. There was barbed wire outside and bars inside. I had never been to a place like this before, and it reminded me of a zoo with cages for wild animals, dangerous beasts. We were not allowed to meet face to face. We had to talk through one of those phone arrangements, divided by thick plastic partition. Chuck was sitting in a chair on the far side of the plexiglass when I arrived. He was wearing prison fatigues, similar to the pajamas doctors wear, except his were orange. His beard was gone. That made him look like a different person. I wondered if I really knew this man at all. I picked up the phone and awkwardly said hello, asked him how he was doing. Fine, he said. He was fine. He said he was glad to see me. He thanked me for coming. He said he hoped I didn't think he was as bad as everybody was making him out to be, and without prompting, he proceeded in a soft, halting voice with his head down, almost as if he was talking to himself, to tell me about it. He said he couldn't remember it clearly. They were in the trailer, he and Vera, and she was shouting at him. She was fat at the time and taking pills. He was cleaning his gun. He wanted to go hunting, and the next thing he knew, she was dead on the floor. His ears were ringing, and he could smell the smoke of the gunshot. I was I don't know what I was, he said to me, holding the phone in one hand. His other hand was over his eyes, rubbing his face, as if he was trying to erase the terrible memory. I don't know what I was, he repeated. Scared, I said. Yeah, scared, I guess, he said, looking through the window at me. Bad scared. I knew what they'd do to me if they found her, because I had killed her. I didn't think anyone would believe it was an accident. Everybody knew about Vera and how she was. They'd all think I had just shot her. And I did. I don't deny it. But it was, I don't know. 1 minute she was screeching and then she was dead, just lying there. I couldn't remember doing anything. And I was worrying and wondering what I would do, and it seemed to me that everybody would think she'd just gone off one more time and not come back if she was missing. People would very likely believe that, knowing her, and I could let them. I could make up a story about her going back to Kentucky, let them think what they liked, that she'd run off with some man. Maybe she stayed with him. Maybe he killed her. You see what I'm saying? I nodded my head. After I figured that out, well, I didn't figure it out, it just come to me, but then there was the problem of what to do with her. I figured maybe I could wait until it got dark, then take her out and bury her somewheres. Who would ever know? But I didn't know how I could lift her. She was too big, even for me. I'm not squeamish. I've hunted all my life. Blood don't bother me like it might some other people. And Vera had already gone to wherever it was she was meant to go. That body wasn't her no more. So I done it. I cut her up and put it in bags like you heard. Buried them at the places I worked. Cleaned the trailer. I know it sounds awful, but honest to God, I never meant no harm. Not even to Vera. I just wanted it all to go away. He paused and I knew I should say something. Yes, was all I could say. It's no reason to kill anybody, he said. That's not what I'm saying. I know that killing's wrong, but I swear I didn't mean to do it. I never knew what happened. I believe it if you say it's so, I said. It is so, he said. Chuck had a story, but it wasn't show and tell, told to impress. It came across that way in the papers, but for him it was the opposite. One says, look at me, I'm different. The other, look at me, I'm the same. That night I went out to the pond with my son and daughter, and while they had a contest skipping rocks, I fed the ducks. The wind blew through the tall grass, the children laughed and shouted, the ducks quacked, and I wondered just exactly when Chuck had killed Vera and when he'd finished working on the pond.